For years, there have been cases that linger in the minds of those who encountered them. Stories so unsettling, so grotesque, they defy reason and explanation. Some have tried to uncover the truth, while others have walked away too afraid to push further. But there are some stories that refuse to be silenced. 3 cases, each one stranger than the last, are about to unfold. In the dark corners of forgotten towns, unexplainable deaths, bizarre disappearances, and unexplained phenomena still torment those who remain. Investigators, family members, and even the most seasoned professionals, no one has ever been able to shake off the haunting memories. The truth behind these cases? Well, the truth is far more terrifying than you could ever imagine. Stay with me as we step into the darkness, where every step could bring us closer to answers or take us further into the unknown. This moment you'll hear about mysteries that continue to plague the living, and the chilling sounds you'll hear, they'll make your spine crawl. Silent Ridge. A small, isolated village nestled deep in the heart of a dense, untamed forest. It's the kind of place few people ever visit, and even fewer return from. The air here is thick with fog in the mornings, and at night, the darkness feels almost suffocating. The village is so quiet that the sound of leaves crunching beneath your feet seems to echo for miles. Few who venture into this area ever truly leave unscathed, and even fewer people dare to speak about what happens in the shadows. On a moonless night, 3 friends decided to go on a hiking trip. It was supposed to be just a weekend escape, nothing more. They had no idea what they were about to walk into. A trip that began with laughter, excitement, and the promise of adventure soon turned into something far more terrifying. The journey into the woods was like any other, until the 3rd day, when none of them returned. No messages, no phone calls, just silence. Days passed before anyone started to worry, and when the authorities finally arrived, what they found wasn't a simple case of lost hikers. Instead, they found something far more disturbing. A cryptic message scratched into a tree. A warning, perhaps, or a sign of something darker lurking in those woods. The 3 friends, Tom, Sarah, and Luke, had been inseparable since childhood. They'd explored the world together, taking on mountains, rivers, and trails. But Silent Ridge was different. Its remoteness, its eerie quiet, drew them in. They were excited for the challenge. What they didn't know was that they weren't alone in those woods, and what they found, or perhaps what found them, would change everything. Their first night in the forest was uneventful. They set up camp near a small clearing, surrounded by towering trees and thick underbrush. The fire crackled, and the sounds of distant wildlife echoed through the dark. But something about that night felt off, like the forest was watching them. Sarah, always the skeptic, dismissed it as nerves. She even laughed about it. But Tom, usually the brave one, was quieter than usual. He swore he heard whispers on the wind. The next day, they decided to push deeper into the woods. The air grew colder. A thick fog began to settle, creeping in from the forest floor. The trees, once tall and proud, now seemed to bend inward, almost as if they were closing in on the group. By the time nightfall came, they found themselves far from their camp, lost. That's when things started to get truly strange. Tom swore he saw shadows moving between the trees. At first, he thought it was just his imagination playing tricks on him, but as he looked closer, the shadows seemed to take shape. The others didn't see it, but they heard footsteps, faint at first, but growing louder. Someone or something was following them. They hurried to set up camp, hoping the sounds would disappear as night fell. But as the fire burned low, the whispers began again. This time, they weren't just carried by the wind. They were clear, almost as if someone close was speaking to them. But that wasn't the worst part. The following morning, the trio woke to find something they couldn't explain. The campsite was untouched, but their surroundings had changed. The trees that had once formed a perfect circle around them now seemed to be different. It was as if the forest had shifted overnight. The paths they had taken the day before no longer led the way they remembered. The most chilling discovery came when they stumbled upon a large tree, one that wasn't there the day before. Carved into its bark was a message, a single line of words, etched deeply into the wood: "You shouldn't have come here." The words were jagged, uneven, as though the person or thing who wrote them had been in a hurry. What did it mean? Who could have left that message? And why was it directed at them? What do you think happened to the 3 friends that day? Was it a case of tragic misfortune, or was there something much more sinister at work? What could have been behind that strange warning? Leave your theories in the comments below. I'll be reading every one of them, and I'm curious to hear what you think. As the search parties began to scour the woods, strange reports began to surface. Some of the searchers claimed they saw the shadows moving between the trees just as Tom had described. Others said they felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the forest itself was pushing them away. The local residents spoke of strange happenings in the woods, of hikers who never came back, and of eerie lights seen floating just above the ground on moonless nights. Some people believed the message carved into the tree wasn't a warning, but a curse. A local legend spoke of an ancient entity that haunted the forest, a spirit of vengeance, guarding the land against trespassers. This entity, they said, would mark those it found unworthy with symbols or messages and then disappear them. Was this what had happened to the three friends? Had they stumbled upon something ancient and unknowable in those woods? Others thought it was the work of a human predator, a killer who knew the forest better than anyone, and who had been tracking them from the very start. Was the cryptic message simply a ploy to mislead the searchers, to make them believe in something supernatural? What do you think? Was it a case of a supernatural entity, or a human predator with an intimate knowledge of the area? Could the message have been left as a deliberate act of terror, or was it something far older and more dangerous? Tucked away in a forgotten valley, hidden behind thick, overgrown woods, lies Black Hollow Farm, a place few outside the locals have even heard of. Its once grand structure now stands decaying, abandoned by time. The farmhouse is barely recognizable, its wood rotting and its roof caving in. Yet despite the dilapidation, there is something strangely unnerving about it. The kind of unease that settles into your bones the moment you lay eyes on it. It's the kind of place that locals avoid unspoken, even taboo. The farm was abandoned long ago after a fire gutted the main building. The man who owned it, Arthur Malraux, disappeared without a trace, and the fire was deemed an accident, though no one could ever explain how it spread so quickly, or why the fire left no trace of the man himself. But the real mystery started after the fire. Neighbors who lived miles away began to report strange occurrences. Whispers of voices, muffled cries for help, and the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the yard at night. Yet when anyone ventured close to investigate, the farm was always silent. Empty. No sign of life, no movement in the house. But people still heard it night after night. The whispers, the footsteps, the unmistakable feeling that someone or something was still there. In 2009, a young family of 4, seeking a fresh start, found themselves drawn to Black Hollow Farm. Desperate for a quiet life away from the noise of the city, they had no idea what they were walking into. The house, though in need of serious repairs, seemed like the perfect place to escape the bustle of modern life. The realtor, aware of the farm's reputation but not sharing it, assured them the house was perfectly fine. So the family moved in, hopeful, excited, and naive. For the first few days, everything seemed normal. The father, David, spent his time fixing the house, while his wife, Linda, tended to the garden. The kids, Emily and Jake, explored the nearby woods, unaware of the dark history surrounding the place. The family was happy, or at least they appeared to be. But it didn't take long for the oddities to begin. It started with small things, the refrigerator making strange clicking sounds in the middle of the night, or the radio turning on by itself, playing static until the volume was cranked all the way up. At first, they laughed it off as electrical malfunctions, but then came the knocking. At first, it was just faint, like someone tapping gently on the walls. But then it became harder, more insistent. One night, as David sat alone in the living room, the knocks grew louder, as if someone was banging on the outside walls. He rushed outside to check, but saw nothing. The night was eerily quiet. Still, the house creaked and groaned as though it was alive. Linda started to hear the whispers. Quiet at first, soft murmurs when she was alone in the kitchen or folding laundry. But one night, she was certain someone was calling her name from the upstairs bedroom. She went up to check, but the room was empty. The whispers continued closer, clearer, and then Emily saw it. Late one evening, while playing in the garden, she saw someone standing in the window, watching her. She rushed inside, terrified, but when David went to check, No one was there. He chalked it up to the wind, nothing more than an overactive imagination. But that night they all heard it. A soft, low voice calling from the attic, "Get out." What could it be? Was the farm cursed, haunted by the restless spirit of Arthur Malroe? Or was it something far darker? Something connected to the land itself? Local legends spoke of a curse placed on the farm long before the fire. Some believed it was the wrath of the forest, the ancient trees that surrounded the house, the very earth beneath it, all connected to something old, something that did not want outsiders on its soil. For David and Linda, the question became, who or what was trying to make them leave? And why were the whispers growing louder? Was it just the house settling? Or had they unknowingly disturbed something much older, much more sinister? What do you think? Was the farm haunted by the ghost of Arthur Malroe, or did the land itself hold a dark secret that only the brave or foolish would uncover? Leave your theories in the comments below. I'm curious to know what you think happened to the family of Black Hollow Farm and what they may have uncovered in those dark woods. As the family's unease grew, so did the strange events. Linda began researching the history of the farm, uncovering bits and pieces of its dark past. She found reports about the fire, how it had been unusually fast, consuming the house in mere hours, yet there was no sign of Arthur Malroe's remains. Some believed he had been caught in the flames, but others whispered he had disappeared long before the fire ever started. As for the whispers, the locals had long since stopped speaking about the farm, but rumors lingered. Some said the farm was built on land that had once been sacred to an ancient, forgotten tribe. Others believed it was the site of an old ritual, a ritual that had gone horribly wrong. The whispers, they said, were the souls of those who had been trapped, waiting for someone to come along and release them. David grew increasingly agitated. The house seemed to press in on him, the walls closing in tighter with each passing day. Then came the last straw one night. As they were preparing for bed, the door to their bedroom slammed shut with such force it shook the entire house. David rushed to open it, but the door would not budge. Finally, he pried it open, only to find the entire room covered in ash. But there was no fire. There was no explanation. Was it the ghost of Arthur Malroe seeking revenge for his untimely demise? Or was it something darker? Something the land itself had been hiding for centuries? Could there have been a deeper, more terrifying reason for the farm's strange happenings? Perhaps the fire wasn't an accident at all. Perhaps it had been set deliberately, as part of a ritual. And if that was true, what was the ultimate goal? What had the Malroe family really been involved in? What do you think? Was the family cursed? Or were they simply caught in the web of something much darker than they could have ever imagined? Midnight Road. A stretch of desolate highway that winds through the heart of nowhere. A place so dark and isolated, it feels as though it exists outside of time itself. Few dare to travel it at night, for the very air seems to grow heavier the deeper you go. The trees on either side close and like silent sentinels, their branches reaching out like fingers, casting eerie shadows over the narrow path. In the distance, the faintest glimmer of headlights appears only to vanish as quickly as they come. Over the course of 10 years, Midnight Road has become infamous for a series of gruesome, unsolved murders. Several victims have been discovered along its length, each case more baffling than the last. The bodies are always found under strange circumstances, always alone, always in the dead of night, and always near the same spot, a dark, remote turn just past a sharp bend in the road. The victims show no signs of struggle, no clear motive, and yet, the brutality of their deaths leaves no room for doubt. Whoever or whatever is responsible is still out there, and the police are no closer to finding an answer than they were a decade ago. What's worse, the locals have begun to speak in whispers. Some claim the road is cursed. Others insist that it's the work of a mysterious killer who's been roaming the area unnoticed. But there are those who believe something far more sinister lies behind these deaths, something far darker than any human hand could create. And as the years go on, the chilling question remains: why? What connects the victims? And what draws them to Midnight Road? The first victim was found in 2005, a young woman, traveling alone. Her purse was missing, and there were no signs of struggle. Authorities initially suspected she had simply run out of gas and was attacked by a random passerby. But when the autopsy was completed, the cause of death was revealed to be far more disturbing. She had been strangled, but there was no evidence of a fight, no signs of defensive wounds. It was as though she had simply allowed herself to die. Then came the next victim, a man in his 30s found on the same stretch of road. This time his car was still parked, but he was gone. The search lasted for days, but it wasn't until the fourth day that they found his body. He was lying face down in a field near the road, his clothes untouched, his body unnaturally still. There was no sign of trauma, no signs of struggle, but his expression twisted, contorted into something unrecognizable, spoke of terror. The next murder occurred just 6 months later, and then another and another. Each victim had one thing in common. They were all found at or near that same curve in the road, each death shrouded in mystery. No fingerprints, no footprints, no trace of the killer. Nothing but the dead bodies, the eerie silence, and the lingering fear that something or someone was waiting for its next victim. The police tried everything. Roadblocks, increased patrols, even an undercover operation. But every time they thought they were close to an answer, something would happen, someone would go missing, only to be found days later, dead, with no clear explanation. Then, in 2013, the case took a bizarre turn. A local man named Henry Thompson claimed to have witnessed something on the road one night, something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He was driving down Midnight Road, alone, when he saw a figure standing just off the shoulder, staring into the darkness. The figure was dressed in black, motionless. Henry slowed down, but before he could pass, the figure vanished into the trees, as if it had never been there at all. That wasn't the only thing Henry saw. He claimed he heard voices low, murmured voices calling from the woods. Something told him to turn back, to leave. But he didn't. The next morning, the police found his truck parked on the side of the road, the doors wide open, but no sign of Henry. He was never found. No evidence. No clues. Just another disappearance, just another unsolved case to add to the growing list. But there's something more, a final detail that remains one of the most unsettling pieces of this mystery. In 2017, a new victim was found. This time, a man named Lucas Harvey. He had been traveling down Midnight Road when his car was found near the curve. But unlike the others, Lucas had left behind a clue. A single, cryptic message scrawled on the side of his car, written in what appeared to be blood. The message read simply, "They're waiting." No explanation. No further context. Just those words, haunting and cryptic. What did it mean? Who was waiting? Some believe it was a last-minute warning from Lucas himself, something he had written in his final moments, trying to leave a clue for the authorities, or perhaps a warning for anyone else who might travel down Midnight Road. Others think it might be a message from the killer, taunting the police and everyone else who had been trying to solve this case for so long. So, what do you think? Who or what is behind the unsolved murders of Midnight Road? Could there be a serial killer who knows the area intimately? Or is something far more terrifying happening? What could those final words mean? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll be reading through all your theories. What do you believe is truly going on along Midnight Road? Could there be something darker waiting in the shadows? Over the years, various theories have circulated among the locals and the investigators. Some believe that the murders are the work of a human killer, someone who knows the road and its patterns well. Perhaps the killer has been hiding in plain sight all this time, blending into the community, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. Others, however, think there's something more supernatural at play. Some say the road itself is cursed, perhaps the spirits of those who have died on it are trapped, and they draw others to them, using their deaths to feed off the fear and despair. The phrase "they're waiting" could be a sign of something far older, something ancient lurking beneath the surface. Then there are those who believe that the victims have been chosen for a reason, that there's something about each one that connects them to the area. Some suggest the murders are part of some ritual, a twisted, long-standing tradition in the surrounding towns. Could Midnight Road be a place where the living and the dead are intertwined, and the murders are not random at all? What do you think? Could it be a human killer, a supernatural entity, or something else entirely? The mystery of Midnight Road continues to haunt the authorities, and the fear that has gripped the locals shows no signs of fading. Will the truth ever come to light? Or will Midnight Road remain a place where shadows lurk, and the silence tells 1,000 terrifying stories? 3 horrifying tales, each leaving more questions than answers. Who or what was behind these terrifying events? The vanishing friends of Silent Ridge, the haunting whispers of Black Hollow Farm, and the chilling murders of Midnight Road. Each story continues to baffle investigators, stir fear in the hearts of those who dare to know the truth, and leave us wondering if the answers are out there, or if the answers are something we were never meant to know. And as we close this video, remember, the mystery doesn't end here. These stories, these dark chapters in history, still echo in the minds of those who are brave enough to delve into them. But who can say what the future holds? Will the secrets of Silent Ridge ever come to light? Will Black Hollow Farm's dark past finally be uncovered? Or will Midnight Road continue to claim victims, its mystery unsolved, its horrors untouched? If you've enjoyed these disturbing true crime stories, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a chilling episode. There are so many more cases to explore, more twisted mysteries to unravel. I'll be reading all of your thoughts and theories in the comments, so feel free to share what you think happened, or what you believe the truth behind these cases could really be. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, not every mystery is meant to be solved.